Welcome to the Build Better Blueprint, the podcast where we discuss the foundations of real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. Join Christian Cardamone as he shares insights, strategies, and stories that will empower you to level up your business, your lifestyle, and your impact. Let's build a better blueprint for success, starting now.
Hey, this is Christian Cardamone. Thanks for tuning in today. This is the Build Better Blueprint. Today, folks, I have a real treat for you. I've got a friend of mine named Greg Ferricielli, fellow Paisan Italiano. I'm going to give you a little intro on him, and then we're going to jump right into an awesome conversation about real estate. So Greg started his real estate journey as a broker, grinding through deals and learning the game from the ground up. Fast forward a decade, and he's now a land development strategist, multifamily investor, and hard money lender who's flipped, entitled, and structured over $100 million in real estate deals. He's raised capital for apartment syndications, provided hard money loans, and built a portfolio that generates cash flow and long-term wealth. When he's not negotiating seven-figure land deals, you'll find him throwing elbows in Muay Thai, jamming on the drums, or soaking up the Florida sun with his wife. Faith-driven, community-focused, and always thinking 5 moves ahead, this is Greg. Let's break it down with him, his wins, his lessons, the raw reality of wealth building through real estate, and being a handsome Italian guinea just like myself. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. What a great intro, man. I don't know how I've ever heard it so well put together. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, I've rehearsed it many times. No, I'm just kidding. Well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for being here. Obviously, you are a member of GoBundance and a very successful real estate entrepreneur in your own right. So you are the perfect avatar for the kind of folks I want to share with my audience, because you're successful, have done multiple different endeavors. You know your way around a deal, but you also know how to focus on some of the other important things in life beyond money: family, self-development, and improvement. So I'm excited to speak with you today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you started and what led you to this current path, and then maybe just highlight a big breakthrough. You know, everyone has that one. So why don't you start there?
Oh, I start there. Okay, no problem. So we'll start with real estate. And when I got into real estate, it was probably 2015 when I was 34 years old, and I realized, I really can't, actually I was 35. I really can't retire from what I'm doing right now. And what I was doing at that time was I had just moved to Nashville, Tennessee from another part of Florida where my family was. Right after the 2008 crash, I basically lost my house, all those things, had to do a short sale, left my job, everything, and moved to Nashville. So a few years later, after I was in Nashville, kind of like figuring out my next part of life, can't really get any money because, I had a short sale. It's just so I just started working in restaurants and, doing what I do, which I love to play music. And I played some gigs and worked with some bands for a while, did some recording, had a little studio for a little bit. And then I just realized how much I hated the music business. It just wasn't fun. Playing was more of an uncomfortable grind. And in that part of my life, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to live on the road. I did not want to. It's very lonely. Just wasn't what I wanted. So I think I felt God say, hey, you need to get your real estate license. And I heard that in my head. And I swear to God, I was like, I don't know what that is or what I'm going to do it. So the job I was at was awesome. They're called Darfon. So good shout out to them. I worked there as a server, actually. And when I signed up to real estate school, they just let me do whatever I wanted. They took me off the schedule. I worked when I wanted. So I got schooled, started and done in 6 weeks, and then started working at a company that I thought I was part of a team. I thought I was at a brokerage. I don't really know exactly, and kind of learned the ways that I don't do things now, theoretically. Started there.
Yeah, that's how it always starts.
Yeah. So, from there, pretty much started doing some wholesale deals, some retail, some listings, bunch of everything, and through that, land came to my door and I was like, okay, I don't really know what to do with this. But luckily where I was at my second brokerage, there was a lot of people that could help me through these things. So I had a guy call me and he's like, hey, I've got this parcel. You can do 12 units on it. I want $275 for it. I was like, awesome. He's like, do you want it? I'm like, sure. I was like, well, we can do this one of two ways. I can do a listing and I can put on the market and get you, more than that, or you can let me put it under contract for $275. Give me 30 days and then we'll see what happens. He goes, well, you can go ahead and put it under contract, do whatever you want. I was like, okay, great. So what happened was he ended up calling me about a few days later saying, hey man, sorry, but I just got to get title fixed on this. There's 3 clouds in the title. It's going to take me like 9 months. And I'm just like, he was like, I'll call you back. And to this day, I laugh. I'm like, the guy's never called me back. I swear 9 months of the day, he called me back. He's like, hey man, you still want that property? I'm like, sure. I'm like, well, how much? Because of course I thought he wanted like 100K more or something. He's like, no, 275 is good. I was like, okay. So I got under contract and immediately put it out to my list of investors and got a call from someone that said, hey, I would love to work with you. You know, how much is it? And at that time I told him 300 grand. I was like, you give me 300 grand. That's 25 fee for me, full transparency, or you give me all the listings on the back end that you're going to sell, the 12, and we can just call it even. He's like, well, I want you to do the listings. I said, fantastic. So let's get moving forward. So that closed in about 3 or 4 months. And that kind of started the development journey right there.
Wow. That's like the dream scenario that you get. First of all, like someone who says, I'm going to call you back, which never happens in real estate. We all know that.
Harvey, there you go, bro. That's you.
Yeah. It's like, okay. And then beyond that, he does call, he honors the original price, which is even more
crazy,
yeah. And then, but the cool thing I like about that story, man, is that you had like enough foresight to say, I can take my fee now, or let's, instead of being greedy, let's just work this bigger picture back end, give me the listings. And then, everyone's kind of more incentivized. They have a lower barrier to entry into the asset. And then boom, you guys are off to the races, right?
Yeah, it was a perfect opportunity just to, see if this builder at that time was someone that I even wanted to work with, because at the worst case scenario for me was if he were to, I actually had it in the agreement where if he sold that deal, he would still have to pay me the difference. So
nice. Yeah. So it being so new in the industry, then how did you had you made a couple deals and figured out what to do, what not to do? Because I'm speaking from my own experience, which I didn't really know what wholesaling was until a decade into my career. And it sounds like you kind of got into that pretty early. I know it's much more mainstream now, but that's interesting that you kind of knew how to navigate that. Was this your first kind of wholesale deal, or had you done a couple
I've done mostly like the single family traditional wholesales, like, 10K here and there, assignment fees for flips and rentals and stuff like that. And I knew that what was going on in our area, like everybody's want to start to build houses and the prices and everything were increasing. So I knew that I had some leverage as a wholesaler because, these deals are not on the market. Now it's a little bit different, because this is before texting and calling and all that kind of stuff. So like people came to wholesalers for their deals. And I knew that like, even if he didn't want the deal, I'd probably ask 325 to the next guy, and I knew I could have probably made 100 grand off of that as a wholesale if I wanted to, because I knew the equity was there, and I knew kind of where the market was going. So really I just threw some options out there and people started saying yes.
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing I love about this industry is it's why it's the greatest industry on earth, because you have, in this example, one piece of real estate and you have 3 or 4 different avenues you can go on to find a way to monetize it. You're going to help the seller get what they want. And then you have options to get what you want, kind of tiered depending on how much skin in the game you want to put. And you're also providing an opportunity to someone else like this builder / developer who has taken it and gone. So has that come to full cycle, and do you still work with that guy?
So that was back in 2016 to 2017. We built 12 units and we landed up exiting those. And then we landed up buying 2 pads across the street. And I think we did another 13 units. And I sold maybe half of that development. They landed up keeping an Airbnb in half, which was a really smart idea on their part. And what else did we do? And yeah, and that was it for that street. So it's funny. It's like you're asking me if I work with that person. It's like, actually, I talked to the guy today. We have just built a relationship, almost a decade later. And it was just super ironic that at the same time I had this 12 unit, I had 3 single family pads that you can put 2 units on. So I had 6 units and I had sold those about a month before. And he wanted some advice on some deals. He's like, well, I don't know if I should build on this or sell the lots. And he gave me the address. I'm like, man, I was like, those were the ones that I sold. Was your agent Tom? He's like, yeah. I was like, well, those are from me also. I was like, I'll tell you exactly what to do with those. So we landed up building those and selling those too. And I landed up, I think I wholesaled 4 of them and 2 of them, well, I wholesaled all 6 of them. And I got listings on 4 of them, 2 different developers at that time.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story there is it's a huge world, man, but even in a market as big as Nashville, if you're the expert in that asset class, it comes back to where the guy's calling you and it's something you've already touched one time. So I think that's ironic, right?
Yeah, it was a hilarious situation. Worked out for sure.
That's funny, man. So I want to ask you, because, every successful person has some sort of like blueprint and they take steps towards their goals. And some folks, it happens kind of just by default, they're just doing what they can. Next thing you know, they realize they're successful. Some folks are strategic and they have habits and strategies that they kind of employ. Tell us about your path now, like, was this something you kind of mapped out and you had dedicated habits that you followed, or was it just grind, and then all of a sudden, holy shit, man, I'm doing
It was
awesome?
definitely a grind, but it was strategic to a point, because you got to remember that from 2015 to even 2020 into 2021, the market was moving really fast. So you had a lot of opportunities. I was really good at moving fast with it. So there was times when we started doing a lot of these listings, and I was just doing all retail stuff too, not just with this land. I remember 2018, people just started, not really just started, but like cold calling not everybody was calling everybody seller. So I started calling these submarkets around Nashville looking for like multifamily opportunities. And I landed up buying a ton of them and wholesaling a ton of them and exiting from a bunch of them and syndicating some. And while that was happening, I was, doing burst strategies on those. I mean, some of them I've cashed out refi like 2 or 3 times since I bought them, because the rates were it was just easy to do. Like, I mean, we got those done in like 2 or 3 weeks. Some of them we averaged cashed out refi on the purchase, where they were giving me the appraised value, which was way more than my contract value, letting me close out that. So coming to the table, even with very low entry.
Wow.
So as that, as that's snowballing, we're still wholesaling more deals. I want to say moving toward 2019, I started investing with my investors in the dirt for our own projects, because they were using mom and pop money at that time. So I was like, hey, man, I'll throw in for some pads. So I started, and I would do it for, not really for equity, but I would throw in like, maybe I would buy the pad 60, 70 grand, and I would get, 7, 8, 9, 10% just on that, plus the listing. So it was kind of like, I kind of got paid, and I got a wholesale fee maybe on the front end if I found that deal that way, or however that worked out. So then, I started investing in their deals, and then I just started buying some pads myself. I did a 1031 and bought 8 units and 2 pads that I could build 4 homes on. And then I bought and sold. I sold the 4 homes. So then I started doing like kind of on the side, just building some single family, and then just rinse and repeat until that didn't become a thing anymore when rates started going up, and I just stopped doing that.
Did you ever kind of dip your toe in the construction pool and to say, maybe I should get licensed and actually be a builder? Or were you serving as the builder since you own these?
That's a great question.
Or what was your kind of role?
Good question. And absolutely not. I want nothing to do with permits, contractors, sticks and bricks. So I hired Highland Homes at that time. They were building, a ridiculous amount of houses in Nashville for years, and we became great friends. And I hired them to do all of those, actually. So I hired those out, and in my career of like 400 to 500 deals, I've only flipped one house, and it was a quad. So I don't like flips. And I didn't even have to manage that one. So I do not like to do any of the managing of that kind of stuff. And I will not.
Well, that's good. You know, like where your strengths lie, because that can be the fatal flaw that a lot of folks make, is when they get into real estate and when the market's good, it's tough to miss when interest rates are so low and you're in a market that's just on fire. And it's very easy to like let your eyes get bigger than your stomach and say, well, I can do that. Then I can make the fees on this. And the next thing you know, you could be getting buried in a construction project. You're in way over your head without the level of expertise that you thought you had. So you're very wise to kind of stay in your lane with just the brokerage and putting the deals together.
Plus, I like to look at risk, right? Like, so the risk I had with those are construction loans and loans on my properties and stuff like that. And that was all the risk I really wanted. I didn't want liability risk. I didn't want to have to put out any bonds or have 3 to 5 years of warranties out there with construction. So I like to just keep my risk where it's more manageable, where it's really just a financial risk over like a liability risk or anything like that, or a time risk.
Yeah,
even.
that's a great point, because that is kind of semi in your control, right? The risk beyond like post transaction, if you are the builder. Yeah, like in our state, you have like a 7-year, 10-year structural warranty. That's why you'll see builders like every couple of years, like just sunset an entity and start fresh, because they don't want this tail following them around of a subdivision they did, maybe, especially they find out like some siding materials have like a lawsuit on them, class action. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to be warranting that. So that entity is now gone. And now we're this entity. So it's wise to understand that from like a kind of a global perspective of investing.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man. Success doesn't come without setbacks. And if you have all these hands in these cookie jars, have you had any? You had your initial kind of crush. It sounds like we all kind of got kicked pretty hard with the initial, market implosion in 2007, 8, 9. But after that, has it been a fairly, I wouldn't say nothing's easy, but have you had any major setbacks with any projects as of late?
So I wouldn't say major setbacks. I would say things maybe not closing when they thought they would, like contracts being a year later or having to find new buyers. So if you want to consider those setbacks, like with contract issues, and there's always that. We had one where we sold the deal, and it went from A to B, and we were B, but we had bought the property. We had to hold it for, I think it was a year or two. And then finally, when our C buyer, who was the builder, got to where he was getting his construction loan, or part of it, he raised some funds and did some bank financing. They realized that the title that we had cleared, that we had just got, from when we bought it a year before, still had a cloud in the title, and they had to do a corrective deed, and we had to go back to the original seller.
Wow. That's always like the worst phone call ever, when you got to go dig up a grave.
Especially when they have buyer's remorse, because and he got twice as much as we originally offered him when we paid, and ended up getting him twice as much. But people see that they're building, that's just the way it goes, But he got a sweet deal. He paid like, I don't know, $60,000 for property, and he got I think we got a 1.5 or something from us. Yeah,
but like hindsight in real estate is like the worst thing
there's no
to have, because it's just, I always tell folks, man, I get clients all the time that reach out to me. I had one just the other day. He's like, man, I should have kept that house. And I'm like, man, it served you well. We were so thrilled to sell it when we did. We got top dollar in that market that day. And they're like, well, now it would have been worth $1 million. But I said, well, of course it would have been worth that much. That's the real estate rewards longevity and patience. So the longer you wait, obviously your returns will be there. But sometimes it hurts. So you got to keep your head down and look, straight ahead.
Yeah. That seller would not answer for like weeks, and we tried tracking him down every way we knew how. And finally, we had to have our title company call him, and we ended up paying him like $5,000 to sign a corrective deed. It was like literally a clerical error. It wasn't like anything wrong. It was like something with the legal description that was so simple, and all he had to do is So whatever. He felt better about it. We still did well in the long run.
Yeah. Good, man. Oh, it's a sunny day. So I want to ask you this a little bit about coaching and mentorship, because that's something I like to talk about on this program. And I'm a huge proponent and fan of self-development coaching and kind of being in the right rooms. How important is coaching and mentorship to you? And, I know we're obviously in this GoBundance Tribe of Millionaires community. Where do you think you'd be today if you weren't participating in this type of professional development and personal?
That's a great question, and I don't really know. So my very first year in real estate, maybe 6 months in, is when I still got my first coach, because I like to be told what to do, and I like to talk through what I'm going to do. So that was when I was an agent. So I got real estate agent coaching from Tom Ferry, and
he's great.
So I had 4 to 5 coaches from 2016 to 2021, I want to say. So it was 5 or 6 years. And then after that, I've had some coaches in between, nothing really specific. I take a lot of courses, but I do every 6 months or so, I'll get like a mindset coach just to work through anything. So
what, having a coach when you first get into real estate can be like daunting, because they're expensive for the most part. And same as you, I forced myself to get a coach right when I got in, but it wasn't like a one-on-one. I think it was Brian Buffini, and he was great, man. I learned so much from that program. But Mike Ferry was where you started out.
It was Tom Ferry. Mike's his dad. So it's a really different program. And
yes.
The thing about coaching is you don't really know what you need or don't need until you start doing it, right? So people learn differently, and you should be outgrowing your coaches, which is why I went through so many. It's like you get to a certain GCI and transactions, like, okay, I don't know where to go from here, so I need to kind of figure out. Plus I started investing, and I needed people that understood all of the aspects of real estate and not just the agent side of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different facets of it. And in my opinion, if you're an agent and you're not investing, it's just, I can't wrap my head around that. It's like, how can you be serving your clients the best if you're not actually walking the walk and talking the talk?
And agents will fight me on this all the time. I hate to, sorry, real estate agents, but you kind of know the least about real estate. One way to do real estate, which is listing agreements and buyer rep agreements and maybe a couple of other things, but they don't know enough to work with the investors the right way. And believe me, like I've got into middle of transactions where I had to like save deals, or maybe somebody bought something they shouldn't have, and we got to figure. I can't believe the things that if they rely on their agent, they have to have done what they're advising them on, right? It's like if you're working with a real estate agent that doesn't own any rentals, don't buy any multifamily rentals from them. Don't buy land, especially from land. If you could tell, I could talk to a land broker and they're like, oh, I've got this and I flip. And those people know what they're talking about. But if you don't, like, people will call me and ask me about land for a listing and stuff like, my question is, why are you working with these people? If you have the clue of even how to write a contract on something like this or how to advise, like if you don't know how to, advise on it, you can't write a contract on it.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how it is in your market now, but that's something we see a lot of is like in our market, folks, some realtors will grab any deal they can and they'll go so far off to the left or the right trying to put a deal together, and they end up like in the dark because they have no idea what they're doing. If they're in a commercial transaction, they don't even know that there's like a commercial contract to use, or there's different sets of forms. And it's always best, is get a little piece of the deal and refer it to an 100%. Expert and make sure that it gets done versus trying to bite off the whole thing and then screwing your clients over massively or just not representing them the way they should be.
Yeah, and that's what I used to do that too, because I used to get retails and industrials. Like I do not know anything about retail and industrial. So I would refer them to, I have a team of, well, depending on what type of transaction, I'll refer them to people in Nashville.
Yeah. So right now, if someone's reaching out to you, is it because they want to do a development project or buy or sell land specifically? Is that kind of your main lane right now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, people just want me to look over deals quite a bit. They do know most people know that I do work in land, and they'll send me deals. So hopefully that I could participate in or buy in, or sometimes give some advice or some help.
Okay. And I want to talk about that as far as giving advice and helping, because we were talking offline, you've got a book coming out soon, and I want to talk about that and what that's about, so we can tell the audience and they can pay attention and go out and get a copy when that hits.
Yeah. It's Dirt to Millions, Mastering the Art of Land Development. Should be coming out 2 to 3 weeks. It's basically what I know about land development and how I've done things. It's kind of specific for Nashville, but it's written so you could take these skills and plug them into your market, at least know the questions to ask. And it has full of case studies, and we're going to have a course on it as well that I'm going to do. Awesome. A 6-week course that will walk through the book.
Okay. And is the goal to try and like maybe build a community of folks that are doing this and offer coaching beyond that to support the book?
So I won't offer coaching beyond the book, but I will definitely like to put a community together for sure.
Nice. Awesome. That's all. Yeah, that seems to be like a great path for folks that once they hit a certain kind of milestone in their career, then they want to kind of share some of the knowledge and bases that they have in these fields and industries. And that's a good way to do it, to establish a community and then help serve them. And that kind of perpetuates like snowball fashion. Then the community members start to interact directly, and you can do something pretty powerful if you've got good subject matter and leadership.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, I do have a question about daily habits and mindset, because this is also something that really makes me curious with high performers and achievers. So do you have any non-negotiable daily habits that you follow right now, or any kind of mindset tactics that you employ to stay with your head in the game?
Yeah. So I'm up super early in the morning. I go to bed super early. Like, it's not uncommon for me to be asleep by 8 o'clock, because I like to get up around 5 and I'd like to sleep 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
When I wake up is from, usually I would say I like to start my work day anywhere between 9 and 10, and that, so 5 o'clock I could kind of slowly get up, have coffee, take my vitamins and my protein drink. I have a room in my house where I kind of go and I journal and read the Bible, read anything, kind of just like get my head cleared for the day theoretically. After that it's pretty much anything physical. Well, I'll go to the gym or do Muay Thai or something like that. Definitely do gratitudes, affirmations. They change every now and then depending on what's going on. But I have like a recorded video of certain affirmations and playlist, So I don't meditate every day, but when I feel like I need to, I will, a couple times a week. And definitely kind of want to do that. Not that same process, but 7 o'clock comes, there's like no TV, no phone. My phone goes off pretty much. And that's when I kind of like, well, slowly, I don't watch TV at night or anything. We'll slowly wind our day down. And that could be more meditating on the day and just getting ready for the next day.
Yeah, I need to take a page out of your book, and I'm always like working to put the phone down earlier when I get home and try and pay less and less attention to it. In this industry, you always feel like you got to be Johnny on the spot, and it's such a hard thing to overcome when the reality of it is like everything's going to be fine if you wait an hour or 12 hours or to the next day. But there's just this sense of urgency that a lot of folks have. And I'm definitely guilty of that. So I'm trying to be mindful.
Well, it's interesting. Like when I like to go to Europe, and I went to Italy last year, and I think I was out for 3 weeks, and I didn't always have internet. So if I got to my emails every 2 or 3 days, and then literally, I mean, it took me like 5 to 10 minutes to go through them, and maybe I had to log into some sites and, take care of a few things. But what I'm usually have my email open all the time. Now it's like, I could do a whole day's worth of emails in 10, 15 minutes.
Was that trip like the breakthrough where you realized that was actually possible and achievable
100%.
because you had to do it just by necessity?
Yeah, and I like to keep up with them, but I don't have to. And there's a pause button on Gmail, or you can get Boomerang and stuff like that to schedule sends and, do different things. Obviously, there's AI that could help with email also, but, email is not a productive activity.
Yeah. Email is basically everyone else's to-do list for you.
It definitely could be, for sure.
Yeah. It's funny, man. You said that. When I went to Cuba back right when it first opened, I went down there for like a week, and internet like barely even exists down there. And I was like a crackhead trying to get like a signal at these little places, trying to check my email. And in hindsight, if I had just, been a little more mindful and experienced that trip a bit more, it would have been probably even more pleasant than it was. But that would have been a good starting point. I probably would be in a different place now if I wasn't stuck to my email as often as I am. But I'll take some advice from you on that. That's a good page to read. So how about this? Tell me about what you're working on like right now. You mentioned the book, possibly wanting to start a community. Where are you and your business headed here in the next couple of years?
So we do a lot of land entitlements, and a lot of these deals are, 1, 2, 3 years in the pipeline. So we're really exiting from a couple deals right now that have been, 2-year deals or whatever. And then I'm working on focused on my apartment building, our syndication. Definitely needs a lot of my focus right now. So spending a lot of time on that. And then,
okay. And where is that?
That's in Kentucky.
Okay.
And then,
so you were living in Nashville. Now you're in Florida, but now you're developing an apartment complex in Kentucky.
well, this is an existing complex.
Okay. Gotcha. And is that a syndication that you guys bought and are doing like a value add or something too? Or is that something you just bought and they're managing?
Yeah, did a syndication. Me and another GoBro, Michael Mead, have teamed up to do this 48 unit in Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
That's awesome. How's that going?
It's challenging. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just a lot more movement than we thought. A lot with, between rents going down a little bit and, tenants just not making a lot of money in that area. There's just a lot more turnover than we expected. Well, I don't want to say a lot more CapEx, but more CapEx than we expected with ACs and water heaters, just stuff like, plumbing, stuff like that. Just a lot of deferred maintenance. And, right now we're really starting to clean it up. I mean, it was under contract for about 5 or 6 months, and it's still under contract. It's supposed to actually sell to another user because we have a 3.9 assumable debt. And
oh, it's beautiful. That's very attractive.
Yeah, I don't know if the deal's going to go through or not, but we're prepared either way to either exit out of it now, and all our investors will get at least their pref and a little bit of equity, or, just doing that at a later time.
Yeah. Will it, the longer you hold it, continue to kind of grow up and heal a little bit? Or was this just the market was a little bumpy at the time?
Just a little bit of everything, between the tenants, turnover was a lot, there were some evictions, people just not paying. This area of the country, people don't have security deposit money, for instance. So we had to rework how we do security deposits, and a lot of people didn't have security deposits. So it's like, out of 30 applications, you're lucky to get somebody that makes 35 or 40 grand a year. I mean, their median over there is just low. It's just a lower median of income. And it's just, it's just you think about it, the lower a deal is, the lower, if you're buying a 10 or $20K lot, it's way more risky than a $200K lot because there's just no room for error, right? So everything is such a, the lower point of the demographic where it's, it's a lot of errors and a lot of movement.
Yeah. Well, it'll be, this will be a feather in your cap at the end of the day.
It's going to be successful for sure. It's just, how and when, and just having always pivot.
Yeah, well, that's what makes a wise investor, knowing when, how to do that and when. What, as far as resources for you guys to learn and grow, what books are you reading right now? What podcasts are you listening to? Where do you kind of get some of your inspiration right now?
Great question. A lot of my books I'm looking on my shelf because I can never remember names when I'm asked. But I'm looking at Buy Back Your Time is definitely one that I just reread because, that's just something that you always have to relook as things change. And now with AI, it's like, okay, you can buy back your time on crack. The AI Power Leader was a major shift in my thinking with that book too. Listening to that podcast with Dan Martell, Dave Bayer is another one that I've been listening to a lot. I'm spitballing through a lot of books right now.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, you're paying attention. I think I'm a member of Dan's community, and he is really, really bullish on AI. Obviously, everybody is who knows what they're doing, but great resources in there. And that book, The AI Driven Leader, I learned about that through Go Abundance. Is that guy, is he a member, the author, or did that come by way of a referral through the group somehow?
So to my understanding, the partner of that author is in Go Abundance.
Awesome. Okay. It's crazy, man. There's so many heavy hitters in this group and no one's out there like pounding their chest saying, this is what so you never know who you're even talking to most of the time, or half of the things that they've actually got going on, which I like. It's a modest group, but they certainly get a lot done and create a lot of impact.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome.
Hear you. Yeah. I definitely love being in the group.
So where do you see the biggest opportunities in this market now for you? You're obviously in kind of 3 different sandboxes. Which one do you like the best? And where should we be paying attention to, or investors for development purposes, kind of your wheelhouse?
Sure. I don't really know what to say to that right now because money's expensive. For me, that leaves out smaller rentals, single family. I just don't really like a single family. They're just a pain and they're more risk than anything. I'd say right now is time to do fee-based activities, wholesale fees, agent commission, and origination fees, and maybe some ways in between, doing some hard money lending, maybe partnering on deals and finding partners and JVing is good because you kind of need to do that anyway, right? There's just no real. Now there's other people out there that say burring is a thing right now and you can burr, but I know a lot of those people are using burring and using private money, and it's just, for me, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. As far as the land development goes, we like to buy raw land that can, I would say 100 to 150 units is our sweet spot, townhomes or single family that we would sell to the national home builders entitled.
Nice. And you guys, do you go and entitle it as well and bring in utilities, or do you just go and kind of identify and bring the deal to their attention?
So it depends. Most of the time we figure out all the encumbrances and do the entitlements. And that could be title work. It could be figuring out, anything to do with soil or water. And then we get it to a point where a national home builder can take it and put their product on it the way they would do it. Because if we go throwing in utilities and even we don't do grading plans or permits or anything like that, we get it it's teed up to where they can take it from there. So usually they're signing on with our engineers and our team that have already started on the same project and just take it over.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys won't go as far as a TRC in a city. You'll kind of just queue it up till because you don't really know what the proposed plan is yet. You just want to kind of get a site ripe and ready for someone to come and put their brand on top of.
Well, yeah, if I have a zoning, if I do 0.1 acre lots, maybe everybody wants to do 0.2 or 0.3 acre lots, or the other way around. They want smaller lots. So for me to plat a whole subdivision really means that I have to find someone to do this one exact thing just like this. And nobody wants to do that. It's like flipping a house and saying this person has to buy a house that's blue on the outside and red on the inside. You don't go that far with it. You put white on the wall so they can figure out what to do with it and put their spin on it.
Exactly.
And a lot of these builders, they have their own corporate rules that they have to go through and how they do deals. So we want to be the partner with them. We don't want to, backpedal from what we think should happen, because what we think means nothing.
Yeah. It's just, you're basically just queuing up the opportunity. Yeah, and then serving it up on a platter.
Yeah, because a lot of these national home builders, they can't buy the land and then take the risk and the time to entitle stuff. They need to go vertical right away. So we're providing a service to them. It's like, hey, even if they can identify properties that they would want that are not quite ready, then we could come in there and work a deal backwards. They could tell us what they would pay for. We can work with the seller or whatever and get the deal. and get it to where they need it and let them take it over from there. So providing us that third-party service.
Yeah, because that's a good point, because the home builders are exactly that. They're home builders. They're not developers. They want to show up and they want to get their crews out there and their supers and start digging and pouring
right away.
It's a whole, it's a whole like unseen industry that you don't know about really until you kind of start to look under the hood as this development and entitlement process, because it just takes years to do. And folks don't see that. They just see the finished product. They have no idea how many wheels are turning kind of like behind the scenes.
They all turn at different speeds.
They definitely do. Some of the flywheels are big and some are small. So that's awesome. So listen, before we wrap up, man, I got a couple questions selfishly. I see an acoustic guitar in the back. I think I see a mandolin. I might see a bass guitar, and I might see cymbals on a Marshall stack.
And a drum set.
Is that like a Mesa? Is that a Mesa head?
It's a triple X.
So tell me about...
Yeah. So I've got my electric guitars. I played, rock music for 20, 30 years. I still play guitar and bass, but just not very often. I've kind of been learning the drums as like my new hobby.
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going, guitar player playing the drums, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I'm a bass player, man, and I can like play every instrument just enough to be dangerous. And like my goal sheet this year is to get back into drums, which I played when I was in high school, but I was horrible then. So I'll probably, I'm a positive guy, but I don't know that I'm a drummer.
Drums are one of those things that you either are born with or you're not. It's like, it's like you look at a drummer and they just got that natural rhythm. I have white boy rhythm, right? And I play the guitar. So it's like nobody's really, groove into what I'm doing, but it's still fun for me and I don't care.
I hear you, man. For me, it's like it's a passion. We've actually got a show coming up this Saturday that we do every year for the St. Patrick's Day, big like outdoor show. And we're playing in a grunge band I've been a part of for like 15 years. And it's funny because started playing these songs as a kid up in New York. And then 30 years go by and I'm playing the same songs now.
It's wild. It's wild that people still listen to that music.
It went full circle. Now it's like Kurt Cobain is cool again, man. I was
crazy.
I know. I'm happy to be a part of it. So it sounds like you are too.
Oh yeah, for sure. My niece had a Smashing Pumpkins shirt. I'm like, you're 15. What do you know about Smashing Pumpkins? It's like, come on.
I love that, dude. All right. So final thoughts, man. If you could go back a couple years, maybe even before 07, 08, and give yourself a little bit of advice, what would that be?
I would have got my real estate license when I moved to Tennessee in 2009 instead of waiting, for sure. Start early.
Yep. Default to action. I hear that, dude. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, man. Where can my audience find out more about you, connect with you, and support you?
Yeah, all the social channels, the YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram are all just under my name. You can look under Rhythm Development on Facebook. Stacked Property Holdings is another one. If you go to my Facebook, it's pretty much all the links there. I'm easy to find. My phone number is on there. I'd love to, if anybody has any land deals that they don't know what to do with, I'm happy to look at them and help evaluate. And, I don't know every area and every area is different, but I can, at least guide you with some questions to find out from your municipality and potentially love to partner and do some more deals.
Awesome. I love it, man. Well, folks, you heard it here first. That's Greg. We appreciate your time today. If you need anything land development related, Greg is your go-to. And make sure you go out and get a copy of his book when it comes out. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Sir.
That's it, folks. That's our show. Thanks as always for listening. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with the latest episodes. Feel free to share with your friends and keep up the great work. You are on the right path. See you at the top.